Hello, my name is David King. I'm the current chair of an organisation called the Epsom Common Association. This was founded in 1974, so this year is our 50th anniversary, and we've organised various celebrations, one of which is this exhibition about the ECA, past, present and future, at the Horton Arts Centre in Epsom. Epsom Common started as part of a larger area of the common waste of Epsom. This was owned from Saxon times by the monks of Chertsey Abbey until Henry VIII dissolved the abbey in 1536. He gave the manor of Epsom to a school friend, but 2 years later he had the school friend beheaded, allegedly due to treason. The common was then passed to the son of the man who had been beheaded, and from then on was passed along from various owners right up until the early years of this century, when it was owned by the Strange family. In 1936 the common was bought by Epsom Borough Council, and they have owned it ever since. During the Second World War, quite some large areas were ploughed for emergency food growth. However, that was never very satisfactory, because one of the reasons the common was never developed is that it was very heavy wet clay soil and very difficult to till. In 1955 agriculture stopped, and the common was largely left, as far as I can tell, to get on with it. So the areas that had been fields became rough grassland. Scrub such as thorn and small trees, particularly silver birch, started getting in through seeds, and gradually the scrub and trees got larger, and by the 70s at least, it was becoming an area of young secondary woodland, and a very impenetrable area of young secondary woodland. By the 1990s, there was a great deal of concern being expressed about the state of the common. It had actually been designated as a SSSI in 1955. However, the reasons for the designation, such as the rough acid grassland, were rapidly disappearing under the trees, and there was a concern that actually the SSSI designation would be lost. There is a widespread folk myth that the Epsom Common Association was founded due to a threat of a road being built across the common. And this, to some extent, is possibly true. However, the founder of the Epsom Common Association, a gentleman called Ted Downham, wrote that it was due to him writing a letter to a local newspaper complaining about motorists driving and parking their cars on the common, and this resulted in other people getting in touch with him with similar concerns, and after meeting up they formed the Epsom Common Association. This then started bringing up other concerns. Clearly the common was a popular place for horse riding, and anyone who knows Epsom Common knows that even walking on the paths in winter turns them into an almost impassable quagmire. Horses are far worse, and there was a great deal of antipathy between some of the pedestrians and some of the horse riders, particularly if the horses were moving at speed, because obviously they're quite dangerous. And there were various other issues. Rubbish dumping was a big concern. It remains a little concern until today, but thankfully it's much less widespread. And so the Epsom Common Association rapidly developed, had over 100 members, I think, by the end of its first year, and started organising other activities such as walks and talks. Well, today cattle are grazed on 3 areas of Epsom Common. The reason for doing this is to try and partly replicate both the historical grazing that resulted in areas of rough grassland and suppression of a lot of tree and scrub growth, and almost in a very crude way, the prehistoric aurochs and other large herbivores, which result in a landscape that is very different to what happens today if you leave the landscape alone and let the trees grow. The Epsom Common Association support the cattle grazing during the spring and summer season by inspecting the animals and the fence lines 4 days every week. That is essential. The animals are checked every day, and so we do the majority of it. The cattle grazing actually started in 1997, when a few years after active management work to try and remove some of the secondary woodland had started, and it was thought that bringing cattle on would help suppress the regrowth of trees. And two animals were brought on. They were British white, which are rather attractive looking white animal with black nose and tail ear markings, and they were called Ronnie and Reggie. And basically every year since, the grazing has expanded up to a level where we now have about 20 odd animals every year spread across the three sites. And they're proving to be a great success, and most people like them. Another area of active management is we actually have our own countryside management group. We operate under the control of the Epsom Borough Council based on their 100-year management plan. So we work in areas agreed with the council, and ultimately it's all the work is sanctioned by Natural England. As much of the common is a SSSI, and you have to seek their permission to do just about anything. Now, this activity actually started in the late 90s. There had been some countryside management by other groups, but the common had largely turned into a very large area of secondary woodland from having been in many areas completely open up till 1955 because it was being farmed for emergency food during the war and in the subsequent period. But by the late 90s it was covered in trees, and people realised that if you're going to keep the variety of animals and birds that were there due to the fact that you had quite a lot of open, rough grassland, you needed to do something about it. So we formed our own small group initially. We now have, the last task we did the other day, we had I think 15 volunteers out. We have a vehicle to carry all the equipment. We've got 2 fully trained and licensed chainsaw operatives. Several of us are trained to use brush cutters. And we can make quite a large difference to an area in over a 2-day task. We typically carry out 7 full tasks, 7 2-day tasks a year. This year we did an extra one because we are in the process working with the Borough Council and the Lower Mole Partnership on restoring a pond. Charcoal making is another activity that we actually started in round about the turn of the millennium. There was a suggestion that rather than importing vast amounts of charcoal, from much of it produced from threatened tropical hardwood rainforests, we should start using some of the byproducts of our own countryside management and turning it into charcoal. So initially we did this using these charcoal kilns. They have the disadvantage, they produce a lot of smoke, a lot of flames, and they actually burn quite a lot of the wood that you're trying to turn into charcoal. However, in 2021 we were lucky enough to get a community infrastructure levy grant from Epsom Borough Council, which allowed us to buy a charcoal retort. This is a rather more sophisticated piece of machinery where you use one fire of waste wood to heat up the charcoal, the load of wood that you're trying to turn into charcoal. And then the gases driven off the wood that previously ended up going up into the atmosphere causing pollution now feed back through the firebox, are burnt, and results in much less pollution but a great deal more charcoal because you're not burning your primary load. So we're now able to produce up to 30 odd bags a year. And this is, I know it's only a drop in the ocean, but the charcoal is very high quality, is available at prices at various local outlets which compare quite well with the supermarkets, and it's not obviously zero carbon, but it's probably the lowest carbon charcoal that you can get. The association now has about 800 members. Organising all these activities, as well as the walks and talks and other events we put on, takes quite a lot of effort. So it's not just the outside activities, we also need people who are willing to help with things like publicity and just general organisation, or collect subs and distribute our newsletter. Today Epsom Common is a thriving organisation. However, it has not escaped our notice that quite a lot of us are getting older. And while we are very happy and willing and able to carry on running the association for a while, we do need to start attracting younger people to take over in the coming years. And we also know that the world is changing, in particular regarding publicity and communication. And we frankly don't have the skills in managing social media pages and the like. There are many other skills we need. A lot of them are perhaps not traditionally associated with outdoor work, but they are necessary to run a reasonably large local voluntary group. These include publicity, writing newsletters, organisation, accountancy skills, etc. If you have any of these, and preferably have at least a liking for nature, then please come along, look at the exhibition, talk to our members. There should be people on the stand pretty well all the time the exhibition is open, and let's see where we can go.